Betrayed and Destroyed. Amy Roloff's life torn apart, forced to sell part of Little People, Big World legacy. Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For Roloff family latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. For nearly 2 decades, viewers of Little People, Big World have been invited into the world of the Roloff family, witnessing their triumphs, struggles, and intimate family moments. At the center of it all stood Amy Roloff, a mother, businesswoman, and heart of the household. With her vibrant personality and unwavering resilience, Amy became a symbol of strength, perseverance, and family unity. But behind the reality TV cameras and carefully edited episodes was a painful truth. Amy's life was deeply scarred by betrayal, heartbreak, and the painful decision to part with something she once held most dear, share of Roloff Farms. For fans, Roloff Farms was never just a property in Hillsboro, Oregon. It was a landmark that symbolized family, tradition, and the legacy of hard work. Pumpkin season turned it into a community gathering place, and the sprawling, acre land became synonymous with the Roloff's public image. But for Amy, it was much more personal. It was the backdrop of her life as a wife and mother, the place where her children grew up, and the dream she and Matt Roloff once built together. To be forced into a position where she had to sell her stake in the farm was not just a financial move, it was an emotional devastation. When Amy married Matt Roloff in 1987, she never imagined that the farm they would purchase together would one day become both her sanctuary and her battlefield. Roloff Farms wasn't just a piece of land, it was the Roloff family's identity. Together, Matt and Amy poured years of energy into turning the farm into something extraordinary. They built iconic attractions such as the pumpkin patch, pirate ship, castle, and medieval-themed structures that drew thousands of visitors each year. The farm was more than a business. It was a place where family memories were made and shared with millions of fans through TLC's cameras. Amy played an integral role in all of it. From planning seasonal events to engaging with visitors during pumpkin season, she was the warm, welcoming presence that people came to love. Fans often described Amy as the glue of the Roloff family, the person who grounded the show in reality. While Matt envisioned big ideas and architectural designs, it was Amy who embodied the soul of the farm through her relationships and authenticity. But all of that began to unravel when cracks in her marriage became too visible to ignore. What once seemed like a perfect dream started to feel like a heavy burden as Amy faced betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, the loss of her legacy. The story of Amy Roloff's heartbreak cannot be told without revisiting the painful breakdown of her marriage to Matt Roloff. For years, Little People, Big World painted a picture of 2 very different people trying to make their marriage work. Matt was the big dreamer, always envisioning the next project, expansion, or business idea. Amy, on the other hand, was practical, focused on family life, and rooted in the traditions of their household. At first, these differences balanced each other. Over time, however, they became the wedge that pushed them apart. By the early 2010s, fans began noticing tension on screen. Conversations between Amy and Matt often turned sharp, and disagreements about the farm became more frequent. Amy felt unheard, sidelined by Matt's ambitious plans, while Matt believed Amy wasn't supportive of his vision. Their communication faltered, and their once united front began to crumble. Then came the betrayal that shook Amy to her core. Matt's relationship with Karen Chandler, the longtime Roloff Farms manager. Though Matt denied wrongdoing during the marriage, many fans and even Amy herself believed that his closeness with Karen was inappropriate and contributed to the unraveling of their partnership. For Amy, this was not just about infidelity. It was about trust, respect, and the life she had devoted decades to building. When Amy and Matt officially announced their divorce in 2015, it was both shocking and heartbreaking for viewers. The couple who had built a legacy together was no more, and the division wasn't just emotional, it was financial and physical. Amy faced the painful task of disentangling her life from Matt's while still being contractually tied to both the farm and the show. Reality TV magnified her pain. Every glance, every tear, every heated exchange was captured on camera and broadcast to millions. Unlike most divorces, Amy couldn't grieve privately. Instead, she had to endure fans' opinions, online criticism, and speculation about her personal life. Some fans sympathized deeply with her, while others harshly judged her decisions. But perhaps the most painful aspect was knowing she would eventually have to make a choice about Roloff Farms. Would she stay, even if it meant sharing space with Matt and his new partner Karen? Or would she walk away from the land she had poured her heart into for over 30 years? The writing was on the wall. With Matt controlling the majority of farm operations and Karen actively involved in its management, Amy no longer felt like she belonged. What was once her safe haven became a reminder of her broken marriage and lost trust. The betrayal wasn't only in her relationship, it was embedded in the land itself. In her memoir, A Little Me, Amy later revealed how blindsided she felt. She admitted that Matt's relationship with Karen left her deeply hurt, and staying on the farm felt unbearable. The very home where she raised her children now carried scars of her heartbreak. And so, Amy came to the devastating realization: in order to heal, she would need to let go of Roloff Farms. But letting go was not simple. It meant surrendering her legacy. For Amy Roloff, Roloff Farms was not just a property, it was a symbol of her life's work, her family's story, and the backdrop of nearly every important memory. But after her divorce, the farm became a constant reminder of everything she had lost. What once represented love, growth, and togetherness now echoed betrayal, loneliness, and division. When the dust settled from the divorce, Amy found herself faced with a gut-wrenching decision: stay and fight for her place on the farm, or sell her share and walk away from the legacy she had helped create. Neither option felt like a victory. Staying meant she would have to share her life with Matt and Karen, enduring their presence in a place that used to be her sanctuary. Leaving meant giving up the farm she had built her entire adult life around. The choice wasn't only emotional, it was financial. As part of the divorce settlement, Amy had to make a concrete decision about her stake in the farm. Matt made it clear that he wanted control, and with his business-driven mindset, he wasn't going to compromise. It was a chess game, and Amy was being forced into checkmate. Negotiations between Amy and Matt were anything but smooth. The conversations were tense, often heated, and carried out in front of cameras for the world to see. Matt wanted to keep the farm and expand, while Amy wrestled with the heartache of letting go. At times, she appeared torn, angry at Matt for pushing her out, but equally determined to carve out her own future. Fans could see her pain. On episodes of Little People, Big World, Amy often broke down in tears while discussing her future. She questioned whether she was making the right choice, expressing fears about starting over at her age. Her vulnerability resonated with viewers, many of whom admired her honesty in showing just how difficult the decision was. Ultimately, Amy made the excruciating choice to sell her share of the farm to Matt. In 2019, she officially sold her portion for $667,000, a figure that, while financially substantial, couldn't measure up to the emotional cost. To outsiders, it may have looked like a simple real estate transaction. But to Amy, selling her stake in Roloff Farms was like surrendering a piece of her soul. This was the land where she and Matt had raised their 4 children: Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. It was where birthdays were celebrated, pumpkins were picked, and holidays were cherished. Walking away wasn't just about property, it was about letting go of a lifetime of memories. What made the situation even harder was the sense of betrayal that lingered in the background. Many fans believed Matt and Karen had pushed Amy out, orchestrating circumstances that left her with no real choice. While Matt publicly framed the buyout as a business deal, Amy's emotional turmoil told a different story. She felt cornered, forced to give up something she loved because the environment had become too toxic to stay. In interviews, Amy admitted that the sale was one of the hardest decisions of her life. She often described feeling destroyed, not just because of the farm, but because it symbolized the end of an era, the end of her marriage, her role as the matriarch of Roloff Farms, and the dream of passing it down equally to her children. After the sale, Amy moved off the farm and purchased a new home in Oregon. Though she tried to embrace the fresh start, fans could see the pain linger. Her new house was cozy, warm, and uniquely her own, but it lacked the deep-rooted history of Roloff farms. It was a necessary step toward healing, but it didn't erase the heartbreak of what she lost. The sale marked a turning point in Little People, Big World. Fans felt the show would never be the same without Amy's presence on the farm. Many voiced frustration, claiming the farm had lost its heart when she left. For Amy, those sentiments were bittersweet, comforting to know she was loved, yet painful to acknowledge that her chapter at Roloff Farms had truly closed. One of the most heartbreaking consequences of Amy Roloff's decision to sell her share of Roloff Farms was the ripple effect it created within her family. What should have been a legacy passed down to her children became a source of division, disappointment, and emotional distance. For years, Amy dreamed of a future where her children would inherit Roloff Farms and continue the family tradition. She often spoke of the farm as a gift to the next generation, a place where Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob could raise their own families. But those dreams shattered when her marriage fell apart and Matt took control of negotiations. Suddenly, the very farm she hoped to pass down was slipping away from her children's grasp. The strain became most visible in the relationship between Matt and his twin sons, Zach and Jeremy. Both boys had expressed interest in purchasing part of the farm and carrying on the Roloff legacy. Zach, in particular, wanted to buy into the farm and raise his family there. But Matt's vision clashed with his son's, and the two couldn't agree on terms. Negotiations collapsed, leaving Zach feeling pushed out of his own childhood home. For Amy, watching this unfold was devastating. She had always hoped her children would be the future of Roloff Farms. Instead, she was forced to witness them feel excluded, just as she had been. Zach publicly expressed his disappointment, and Jeremy quietly walked away, purchasing his own property elsewhere in Oregon. To Amy, this felt like another betrayal, not just from Matt, but from the circumstances that left her kids without the legacy she intended for them. Amy's younger children, Jacob and Molly, took different paths. Jacob distanced himself from the show years earlier, disillusioned by reality TV and protective of his privacy. Molly, the only daughter, married and moved away, rarely appearing on screen. While both maintained close relationships with Amy personally, they remained detached from the farm drama. Still, Amy knew they too were being denied the chance to inherit the land that once belonged to the entire family. The fracture was painful. Instead of the farm being a unifying legacy, it became a symbol of division. Siblings grew apart, resentment lingered, and Amy felt the sting of watching her dream for her children collapse in front of her. What made it worse for Amy was Matt's growing influence over the farm, often aided by Karen Chandler. With Karen stepping in as Matt's partner not only in life but also in farm management, Amy felt increasingly sidelined. Her children, particularly Zach and Jeremy, were left to navigate their strained relationships with their father while processing the loss of their inheritance. To Amy, this felt like betrayal layered on betrayal. Not only had she been forced to sell her stake, but now she was watching her children experience rejection in a place that was supposed to belong to them. The Roloff name was still tied to the land, but the family unity that once defined it was gone. For Amy, the hardest part wasn't losing money or property, it was losing the dream she had for her children. A mother's heart longs to give her kids a legacy, something to hold on to when she is gone. To know that Roloff Farms, the very land she built her life around, would not stay in the family line left her feeling destroyed. Fans empathized with Amy deeply during this time. Many argued that she had been unfairly pushed out, while others pointed fingers at Matt for prioritizing profit and personal relationships over his children's future. Through it all, Amy tried to remain strong, but her vulnerability often showed in her interviews and social media posts. What was once a story about a family building a dream together had become a story of division, betrayal, and broken trust. For Amy, this was the cruelest cut of all the loss of unity within the family she had worked so hard to nurture. The collapse of Amy and Matt Roloff's marriage didn't just end their romantic partnership, it ignited years of tension that continued to play out long after the divorce papers were signed. For Amy, selling her share of Roloff Farms to Matt was supposed to bring closure. Instead, It created new wounds, financial frustrations, and an ongoing battle of emotions that refused to settle. After the sale, Amy thought she could distance herself from the chaos by starting over in her own home. Yet she couldn't fully escape Roloff Farms because Matt and Karen remained a constant presence in the headlines, on the show, and in the lives of her children. Karen had transitioned from farm employee to Matt's partner, both romantically and professionally. This dynamic left Amy feeling overshadowed, as though the farm she once helped build had been handed to someone outside the family. To make matters worse, fans often compared Amy to Karen, fueling online debates about who was the better match for Matt or who deserved more credit for Roloff Farms. These comparisons were a painful reminder for Amy of how quickly her role had been diminished in the public eye. Money added another layer of difficulty. Though Amy received a buyout from Matt, she often spoke about how overwhelming it was to suddenly handle finances on her own. For decades, her life had been intertwined with Matt's business dealings and the security of the farm's income. Now, she had to navigate new responsibilities: buying a home, making investments, and ensuring her financial independence in her 50s. While Amy is a savvy entrepreneur running Amy Roloff's Little Kitchen and engaging in speaking events, fans could see the stress etched on her face during this transitional period. She admitted in interviews that she felt pushed out rather than empowered, and that starting over so late in life felt daunting. What hurt Amy most wasn't the money, it was the scars left behind by years of betrayal and loss. She often spoke about how Matt's relationship with Karen haunted her, not just because it was a reminder of her failed marriage, but because it felt like Karen had replaced her in both business and personal arenas. The farm, once her greatest joy, became a symbol of everything she had lost. Every time she drove past it or heard fans talk about pumpkin season, she was reminded of the memories she could never get back. While Matt continued building attractions and promoting the property, Amy was left to rebuild her identity away from it. Even after the divorce, Amy and Matt remained tied together through Little People, Big World. Their interactions on the show often revealed the deep cracks in their relationship. Arguments over business decisions, land use, and family gatherings made it clear that the wounds hadn't healed. Amy frequently expressed frustration at feeling dismissed by Matt, while Matt portrayed himself as the practical one trying to keep the farm afloat. For fans, it was uncomfortable but captivating television. For Amy, it was living proof that her scars weren't just personal. They were public, constantly replayed for millions to see. Perhaps the deepest tension between Amy and Matt lay in their differing views of legacy. For Amy, the farm had always been about family memories and tradition. For Matt, it became more of a business empire, something to expand and profit from. This difference in vision ultimately tore them apart. Amy wanted to protect the farm's emotional significance, while Matt wanted to build something bigger, even if it meant pushing his family out. To Amy, this was the ultimate betrayal, that the man she once loved had chosen profit and control over family unity. And no amount of money from the buyout could erase that truth. After decades of being tied to Roloff Farms and living in the shadow of her marriage to Matt, Amy Roloff finally began to chart a new course for herself. Selling her share of the farm and moving into her own home was painful, but it also forced her to face the unknown and start fresh. That new beginning came in the form of lovey and unexpected romance with Chris Merrick, a real estate agent who would later become her husband. Amy met Chris at a singles event in 2016, not long after her divorce. At first, she wasn't sure she was ready to date again, let alone trust someone with her heart. But Chris's calm demeanor, sense of humor, and steady presence won her over. Unlike Matt, Chris wasn't tied to the farm or the show. He represented a clean slate, a reminder that Amy could build a life for herself outside of Roloff Farms. Their relationship blossomed, and in 2019, Chris proposed. Fans celebrated Amy's happiness, seeing in Chris a partner who supported her emotionally and respected her independence. In 2021, the two tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony ironically held at Roloff Farms, a bittersweet choice that reflected both her past and her present. Moving into her new home with Chris gave Amy the space she needed to heal. She decorated it with her own touches, hosted family gatherings, and built a life that reflected her values rather than her past. For the first time in decades, she had a place that was entirely hers, no negotiations, no shadows, no compromises. Still, the transition wasn't easy. Amy admitted she struggled with letting go of Roloff farms emotionally. The memories of raising her children there, of family dinners and pumpkin seasons, lingered in her heart. At times, she confessed she felt torn between gratitude for her new life and grief for the one she lost. Amy Roloff's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. From a young woman building a life with her husband on a modest farm in Oregon to becoming a household name through Little People, Big World, her story has captured the hearts of millions. But behind the laughter and pumpkin season smiles was a woman who endured heartbreak, betrayal, and the painful loss of her legacy.